All right, guys, welcome back to day 7 of our program. We are officially in our last week. Um, Friday, was it Friday? No, Thursday, we concluded essentially like the actual curriculum aspect. Today, we're going to be jumping into our mini project week. Um, we have significantly less people today as we had throughout the entire course, but that's okay. Um, where should you guys all be right now? Well, with this being the last week of the course, and the part 2 application deadline approaching quickly, for those of you who are attempting to apply to the Venture Platoon, you guys should be, if not already completed, um, working on the coder bite challenges. Um, Up to this point, you should have the knowledge, right, to be able to successfully complete those 3 challenges. Um, Afterwards, you guys have your essay questions and then the video. You guys should have an email about the guidance of the video being a 5-minute video of you introducing yourself, talking about yourself, and then the other path of the video, you choosing one of the algorithms that you guys use to solve the exercises, and then explaining your solution. Uh, um, Now, if you haven't completed your quarter bite challenges, that's okay. Ideally, you want to make sure you complete them within the next couple of days. Since the application deadline is Sunday, you want to have everything completed and have your live technical assessment scheduled with our instructor who is in charge of admission, which is going to be Guillermo. Um, so right now, you're probably asking yourself, okay, well, Roger, we made it up to this part of the program. And you know, I feel like whenever I'm looking at a problem, I don't know what to do. I feel a little lost, or I don't know how to engage the problem to reach a solution. So hopefully we are able to solve some of these questions through the last 3 days of this program. And we're going to do that by via of our um, mini projects, right? So let me go ahead and kind of get my screen share going. All right. We should all be seeing once again my code spaces. Today we're going to be working on day 7 for mini project 1. And I believe today is a combination of a couple different exercises. And the way that we're going to do this is we're going to take some time to review the problem. We're going to talk about it and what it's asking from you. And after we discuss it, we are going to break up into even teams where the the goal is for you guys to discuss the problem, and the correct way of doing it will be someone hopefully takes lead and decides to share the screen, and then everybody as a group collaborates about their thought process and how to engage the problem, and then getting some code on your screen, and together as a collective group reaching um, the completed problem, right? Um, I know we are all in different um, you know, steps of our coding journey. So, talk to each other and, help each other out. Right. So we won't talk any further. Let's go ahead and get straight into today's class. The first problem we're going to be tackling for our first mini project is going to be probably the easiest one of them all. As you'll notice, as we progress through these exercises, they're going to get progressively harder, right? And there's no right or wrong answer to these exercises, right? As I've mentioned before multiple times, you are given a tool belt of different tools at your disposal. And if you ask 5 different people to reach a solution, maybe 1 or 2 of them might be the same, but for the most part, you'll get different answers, right? Uh, some answers might be more efficient than others, but at this point of our journey, we're not really worried too much about efficiency we want to make sure, can we leverage the tools that we have to reach some kind of answer, right? So uh, the only limit is going to be your imagination, right? How you use the tools is going to be up to you. All right, so the first exercise we have here, it's called manipulate text, right? In the paragraph below, we write a script to identify the longest sentence by word count. Now, as you guys work on these, you don't have to work on them here in Jupyter Notebook. As you've already probably experienced since you've been working through the curriculum, a Jupyter Notebook sometimes acts weird, right? Or it's not the most efficient. So I encourage that, copy and paste the exercise into a raw Python file where you can kind of come into and just work on, right? Um, that's probably the best way of doing these exercises and just running it on a Python file because Jupyter Notebooks is just very weird sometimes. So looking back at the mini project, we have this long text. It seems to be like a long paragraph. And if you start reading it, it's really an explanation of I believe it's a state. Nestled in the heart of the Pacific Northwest, Washington State is a mesmerizing blend of natural wonders. And I'm not gonna read the entirety of this because the content of the actual paragraph doesn't really matter. But it's what we are going to do with this paragraph, right? We want to write a script that's going to identify the longest sentence by word count, right? And then we want to kind of return that as an output. So we have a mixture of different sentences here of different lengths. Um, and throughout this entire paragraph, you're going to see some stuff that it's going to give you some issues, right? We see mainly the punctuation and capitalization might be an issue here. What you have to take into account as you work through this problem is how am I going to take or handle the periods, the commas. You might have some words with apostrophes to show ownership. I don't see one from here. But what you're also going to encounter is going to be the one that is different from all of them is this sentence right here that starts with among these peaks, Mount Rainier stands as a sentinel, an active volcano in the pinnacle of the state's natural beauty. Now, the reason why this one might give you an issue is because uh, of the word or the mountain, Mount Rainier, right? Mount, MT, mountain, or the MT is the abbreviation for mountain. So this might be interpreted as the end of a sentence, but it should not be an end of the sentence, right? This is still a long sentence. If you try to split this up at every period, you're going to realize that it's going to treat these four words as one sentence, which is not correct. So you as a developer, your goal is to be able to have, find a way to handle that, right? So I'm gonna break you guys up into teams. Your goal is to one person should decide to share the screen. You guys can choose between who your group who does it, and take lead, right? And the way that it's usually done, you have one person who is driving, and then you have other people who are navigating, right? The person that's driving in the situation is the person who is actively coding, right? This is a person who is sharing the screen, um, and doing the code, while other people are watching the person code and then giving their input. Usually, what you might encounter is that when you're actively coding, what we tend to do is we tend to get tunnel vision, right? We kind of just start coding and putting stuff in our code, and we might miss something, or we get hyper focused on a part of the problem where we lose sight of the grand scheme of the problem. So when it comes to programming in teams or groups, that's what the navigator's for. They're watching from the outside as you drive, and they help steer you in the correct direction, right? Um, I still recommend for every single one of you guys who isn't actively sharing your screen and driving for you to still have this exercise pulled up and you're kind of coding along and seeing what kind of solution you can get as the person who's driving is displaying their screen. Do I have any questions before we break into some teams? Okay. Well, if there's no questions, I'm gonna go ahead and pause the record. All right, welcome back. How'd it go?
Not bad, but we definitely need more time.
Yeah, you're killing us. We were so close, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
we were
Okay.
making good progress, but we need more time.
Yeah, I went through the breaker rooms. I'm sure if you saw me on the wall. I saw some good stuff and some bad stuff, right? Some people, like you said, we're close, and then some people were absolutely lost. Which is why I kind of closed it, right? But we're getting there. Maybe we're overthinking it a little bit. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and break it down, and I'm gonna talk through like my thought process of how to go about this. Now, disclaimer: I don't have an answer key, right? And that's done on purpose, right? I don't have an answer key. I don't do this right before I join class, and I do that on purpose. So like every time I come to these exercises, I'm kind of trying to think through it. Occasionally I'll remember, oh, this is how I did it. But for the most part, I'm seeing this, pretty fresh. It's been a hot minute. The last time I taught this was a couple months back. So, and that's done on purpose. So you can see me struggle if I do struggle, and how I get around solving the problems, right? So we should all be looking at my VS Code right now. I'm on CodeSpace. Is that correct? Can I get a thumbs up from somebody? Okay, good stuff. So I have this paragraph here. It's Let me see if I can format this. It's obviously coming out of my page. If I put word wrap, there we go. So you can use word wrap, so it brings it all into your window. But here is my very long string of multiple sentences, and I have to be able to split this up and identify the longest sentence by word count, right? So I was working on it a little bit the last 2 minutes before I brought you guys in to try to refresh my memory. And as I mentioned to you guys before we broke into teams, was the item that'll probably give you the first issue is going to be the MT for mount, right? So this is only one item in here, right? There's only one possible there's only one word in here that gives me this kind of issue. Everything else is pretty consistent. Um, and there's a couple ways of doing this, right? If you look on Google, if you use ChatGPT, it's going to give you a very complex way of doing this. And the complex way I'm talking about is referring to regex, right? But we haven't talked about regex, so we're not going to use anything fancy to handle every possible scenario. We're going to do this very deliberate, right? So the first thing that comes to mind is if this is the only weird thing here that is like an abbreviation, I'm just going to go ahead and deal with that directly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say sentence, right? I'm going to reassign this variable of the sentence that I got. I'm going to say sentence is equal to, and then I'm just going to go ahead and use the dot replace method. Just get rid of that MT. And what I want to replace, well, I want to replace MT period, and I want to replace it with mount or mountain, whatever floats my goat, right? So right off the bat, I just got rid of that factor there. I don't have to deal with anything else involving an abbreviation. Like I said, there's more elegant ways of doing stuff for taking into account every possible scenario, but I have not taught you guys that. That is out of scope of this course. So let's use what we have and reach a solution for this problem. There's no reason to overthink about it or find some already built-in method to do this. So let's automatically replace this the MT with mounts, or we can just do mountain. Whichever one is fine. And I can show you this if you like. It's just gonna look a little crowded in the terminal when we print sentence. We see here, if we look among these peaks, mountain Rainier, right? So right off the bat, sentence has now been formatted. All I did was reassign whatever the value of sentence was to what it was, but with something replaced. Awesome. Now, read this. I know I have to identify the longest sentence by word count. And so that right there is a keyword. I want to be able to grab each sentence and in some shape, way, or form, count how many words each sentence has. So ideally, it's probably easier if I split this entire string into individual sentences, right? That the fact that I have to check each sentence kind of gives that away, that little keyword right there. So the easiest way to do that is to use our split method, right? And I see Andy already on it. We want to split the string by each period, right? Because as we know, elementary grammar, each sentence ends with a period. So now we could go through here and check if there's exclamation marks. I don't believe there is when I was looking through it. I think we only have periods. There's no exclamation marks or no question marks. Now, if there was, then we would want to handle those. But I only have periods, so that's okay. So let's go ahead and handle it as such. So I'm gonna say split underscore sentence is equal to sentence dot split, and you have to specify where you want to split this sentence at. I want to split it at every period, right? And when using the split method, when you try to split a string, it'll automatically return to you a list of the string split at the point that you dictated, right? So I can print it out before I start looping through it just so you can see split sentence. And you'll see here, oh, yeah, here it is. So this is my list. The first item goes up to here, and then comma, then it starts the next item. Now, there's something here to note, right? I just caught this. Look at this. What is this? The space. Well, what happened was each sentence is split by a period, but as we know, there's going to be a natural space there after each sentence. So we didn't take that into account. Now there is a way to handle this, and what method comes to mind when you think about removing a white space from the edges?
Couldn't you just put that into the dot space, commas?
Dot space commas? What do you mean?
When you did the initial split, could you go back and reformat the split to go comma or parentheses dot space parentheses?
Yeah, that's a good question.
As that is the formatting that we're looking for.
Yeah, let's look at that. Let's see if that works for us. I use the dot split method, and something happens here, right? Specifically the last sentence here, we're gonna see that it's gonna have landscape, and it has a period, right? The period's still here on the very last sentence. Everything else doesn't have the period. It split it exactly how I wanted it, but this isn't exactly how it should be. The period's still here on the last sentence. And the reason for that is because we are specifically splitting it at every location where there is a period followed by a space, right? And the last sentence does not have that space. It is just the period. So I won't recognize this. So
could you add just another dot or another that other formatting, put in a sentence split, give it two variables, the dot space or just the plain dot or the period in another set of parentheses with a comma, basically giving it two values?
I could, right? So there's no right or wrong answer here. If you want to do that, you want to run another split method, sure. If you want to manually remove each split method in a different way, by all means. The easiest way of doing this is just split it at every dot. And honestly, even this kind of gives me some weird reaction. Notice at the end of this list, there's something here, right? There is a natural space here at the end of the list, and it looks to be its own item, right? It's nothing, it's just an empty item, but there is some item here at the last part of this list. right? So even this gives me some weird function or some weird results. So there's different ways of doing this. Someone just said it in the chat, the method that we are going to use. That's going to be the dot strip method, right? What we want to do is remove any kind of white space, and that dot strip method does do that for us. This is also, it was taught, I believe, day 1. So if you want to review where that was at, check day 1. We mentioned the dot split method and the dot strip method. If you want a little bit more in-depth explanation to both these methods, visit W3 Schools. But we do have our list here, so let's go ahead and start looping through. We can say for sentence and split sentence, print sentence. And I'm just gonna go ahead and start this for loop, right? Why do I do a for loop? Well, we are working with a list now, right? And the list is a keyword or a trigger for you to know that you probably want to have a for loop, right? How do you access multiple items in a list? Well, if you did it manually, you would do index 0 and then index 1 and index 2, and that's not very efficient, right? We have tools to our disposal to go through an iterable and grab every single item and do something with each item, right? And that tool is our loops. Now, which loop you use in the situation is going to be dictated by what you're looping through, because we are looping through a data structure, a list of multiple values. The best method or the best for loop to use here is just a for in loop, right? For sentence and split sentence. And that's going to give us access to every individual item within here. And where am I printing now? Okay, let me remove this print statement because I'm getting weird outputs. Let's run this again. And here it is, right? Each line should be their individual sentence, but notice that there's some weird formatting here. And this is because we have yet to remove that white space. So if I do sentence dot strip and I run this again, it fixes that white space, right? So I'm able to grab each sentence inside of this list, and as I'm printing it out, I'm just removing any kind of white space from the left and right. So cool, we got something working here. There is no commas. These are all the individual list items, right? Which are specifically sentences, right? Now it's not perfect, so it looks a little weird because it doesn't all fit in here, right? If I extend this out, you can see how where stuff starts and ends. But let's go ahead and move forward. What we have accomplished up to this point is we now have access to each sentence in here. So now that we have each sentence, someone kind of give me a clue. Where can we go from here?
Maybe a count method. Oh, wait, never mind.
I see her count. Trevor says a max, which it has a max. Yeah, we can use max. I wonder how a max would work in the situation, right? Because max, if we just run the max function on a list, it'll return actually not. I don't think we can run a max function. How can we use a max function here, Trevor? Max with key. Someone come off the mic and explain to me this if they can.
We can't use keys because it's not a dictionary, so we don't have a key value pair. Correct?
Yeah, well, we don't have a key value pair. That is correct. I'm assuming since no one else came off of the mic, these are guesses, and that's okay. I don't know how we can use max. If you guys can explain it for me, I encourage it. If not, I think the best way of doing this is probably splitting this into their individual list as well. There may be a better way of doing this, right? The first way of doing this that comes to mind is splitting each individual sentence into its own list of words, right? And then we can count how long that specific list is to tell me how many words we have. The reason why I'm a little iffy about the max that you guys are mentioning is because typically max is going to bring you the biggest value of something. And if you use the max on a straight string, it might return to you how many letters it is. I'm just guessing here from the top of my head. And that does not exactly correlate how many words are in a sentence, right? Because every word is different sizes of letters. So maybe max will probably give us some weird result that we're not exactly looking for. That's why I'm a little iffy about that method here. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create another data structure that I can use to format in every individual sentence as I iterate through this loop, right? And I'm gonna call it split. Let's say list. What do I call this? I'll call it split paragraph, the initial one that we have. Right, I'm gonna change the naming convention to make it a little bit more sense to me, because this is a split paragraph into individual sentences. I'm gonna create that separate list, which is gonna be split sentences, right? So I changed the naming convention here on my variables to make it make sense a little bit more to me. This split sentences is going to have a list of exactly as the name conveys, a bunch of split sentences into individual words. So as I iterate through this list of sentences, what I am going to do is I'm going to append, I'm going to say split sentences dot append. And what am I going to append? Or I am going to append the sentence I'm currently on, and I'm going to split it. So whatever gets saved into this list is going to be another list itself of individual words. Now, one thing that I want to add here before I just add it in here is I'm going to add the dot strip method as well before I split it up, so I can get rid of that white space, right? And let's see how this works. Let's print it out, actually. We'll say split sentences for I and split sentences print I. Let's see what it looks like. Okay. When I iterate through this split sentences data structure, the first item I get is this, right? It is an individual list of individual words, right? The next item I go through that I grab is the next sentence split up inside of this list with individual words, and so on and so forth. Now, the reason why I added this dot strip method when I was splitting it up is because if I don't strip it before I add it in there, what I'm gonna get is going to be, I believe, white space. Let me run it again. Maybe I didn't track it. There we go. We're getting white space where we shouldn't have it, right? Let's see where else. Well, it's at least here.
Yeah,
Right,
because
so
that's the only one. That's the only one with nothing following behind the period.
Yeah, so that dot strip method prevents that, right? Dot strip. No, it looks like it's still doing it. I guess I don't need a dot strip method. That's weird. Let me clear it up. I don't know why my computer's lagging. Nestled in the heart of the Pacific is okay. Yeah, I don't think I need the strip method. It looks like I'm getting a solid result, right? It's just the word itself. I don't have any spaces. No white space. Yeah, I think I'm good. I still have this weird one at the very end, right? Where that period was. That's, I don't know why it's so weird. It's just treated that way. But I'm not gonna worry too much about these individual details, right? It's okay, that's for another day. But as you can see here, as I iterate through the split paragraph to grab every individual sentence, I'm going to say split sentence this dot append. And notice that when I just append it somewhere else, for word for in split sentences, right? And then when I do dot split, yeah, right. Instead of being appended into the list as one big string, as we already know, using the dot split method returns the string in a list format, right? So we can leverage that functionality to split every single sentence into its own individual list. Awesome. Okay, well, we're getting somewhere. But this does not tell me which one is the longest one. What's the next step? After I split everything into its individual list of words, what's the next step?
Identifying the items, item count per list.
Item count per list, yeah. And what's one way of doing that? Well, I can create a counter and I'm going to set it to 0, right? I'm going to create a variable that I'm going to manipulate up or down depending on what I've encountered. And because I have not started this counter will start at 0. I'm going to iterate through all these lists of words, right? And see which one has the most words in it, right? And how can I check how many words are in a list of words?
You have to do another for loop, and for I in sentence, and then inside the loop, increase the counter by 1 with each iteration.
Yeah, so I'm going to iterate through this list of lists, right? And as I grab each list, for I in, oh, my bad, I'm using the wrong one. For I in split sentence. Right, I'm gonna print I. And actually, let's add some formatting here. We'll say, how can we do this? Yeah, I can say print counter, comma, I, counter plus equals 1. Let's see how this looks like. Right. So here we can see a little bit visually, a little better visually what we're printing out. So the first time that we run this for loop in this list of lists, what I'm going to do is I'm going to print counter followed by the list that I'm currently on, right? So we can visually see where we're at. So on count 0, we print out 0 and then the first list. We then increase the counter by 1 and the for loop starts all over again. This time, I is going to grab the next item. Counter is now equal 1. So it prints out 1, followed by the list that we're on, and so on and so forth, right? So this just has to show you how our counter is working as we go to every individual list. So that's not how we're going to use counter, though. I can say counter, or I can say max list or max words is equal to 0. And as I iterate through each list, I'm going to check how long it is, right? I'm going to check how long it is by using the len method, right? Len and I, right? This is going to return to me how long a list is. And we can see that print len of I. And the first sentence we have is 20 items long, 28, 20, 29, 35, so on and so forth, right? So I can already visually see that there are size differences, and I'm going to encounter a list that is a certain size bigger than the other, right? But I need to be able to know which sentence that is and keep track of it. So that's where max words is going to come into play. I'm going to say if the length of I is greater than max words, right? That means that I have encountered a list that's bigger than 0. So the first time this runs, it's going to find the first item, which is 20 items long. So by default, the very first item will immediately be bigger than max words. So when that happens, I'm going to say max words is going to equal the length of I, right? That means I encountered my first item that is bigger than 0. So I have now checked the first item in this iteration. And because that is now my longest length, my longest list, what I can do is I can save that. I can say max list is equal to, I'll leave it as an empty list for now. But when I encounter a list that is bigger than my current max words, I'm going to say max list is equal to I. And I think this should work. Right, bear with me. We might have to do some messing around afterwards. And that's okay. All I'm doing is reassigning whatever my max list is. Make sense so far? Cool. So the first time this iterates, I find the first list, which is 20 items long. Awesome. Next is going to start over again. This time it's going to grab the list that's 28 items long. It's going to check, hey, is it longer than max words? Well, yeah, it will be longer, right? Because it's 28 characters. So I'm going to update what max word is, and I'm going to update my new currently max list to that current value, right? And we'll go to the next item. This one is 20 characters long, so this is going to fail. And if it fails, well, I don't want to do anything. I don't care for that one because there's obviously much longer sentences out there. So all I'm going to say is continue. So else, continue. Once this iterates through all the lists, I should end up with 35 being the max word count, and the list that I encountered when I found it should be saved into max lists. And then just for the sake of this, let's print out what max list is by the end of it. And then also let's print out what max words is. Let's see what it gives me. It should be 35 and a list of characters. And there you have it. You have the 35 and whatever list it was when we found it. Now, this isn't really good looking, right? It's a list of words, but it's not a sentence. So what we can do is I can rejoin this sentence and reformat it back to a regular string. So what I'm going to say is formatted answer is equal to, and now I'm going to join every character within this list back to itself using an empty space, right? I'm going to use the dot join method and I pass in max list. Roger, where are you getting this method from? We talked about it, I believe, on day 1 or day 3. And now let's print out whatever formatted answer is. And here we have it. We have our string. It's not exactly pretty. So what I'm going to also do is I'm going to add a period to this at the end. Plus period. Because it's missing the period, right? And here you go.
We're missing the word count.
We don't need the word count. We just need, I mean, you can, right? It just says to identify the longest sentence by word count. This is the longest sentence by word count. If you want to return the count, sure. I didn't specify exactly, but if you made it to this point and you return the correct sentence, I know you have the correct word count. So I'm not worried. Does anybody have any questions how I achieved this result? Andy said, can we do another one? Yes, we will do another one after this temporary break. I will see you guys in 10 minutes at 7:14. Actually, 7:17, my bad. So the first hour was working on the first exercise. We're about to move on to exercise 2, the phone number scrubber, right? So just like before, I'll briefly talk over the problem, then we will break up into individual teams and then attempt to tackle the problem and reach a solution. This time, I'll give you guys a little bit more time than the first time. If the time elapses and the rooms don't close, that's okay. If I see that you guys are working on them, I might let you guys go farther into the time to make sure you guys get some good work in. So don't just like stop working because the time frame I give you ends. If the rooms are open, then continue working. But here we go. So this is the phone number scrubber, right? So you're going to imagine that you are working for a company that has a list of phone numbers in various formats. This is actually a little real world. You will be working with a lot of data, and you're going to have to establish code that sets a format for how you receive data, right? You don't want some goober to add random stuff like start adding text when it should be numbers, right? Within the phone numbers field, right? Does anybody know what SQL injections are? Right, so you want to prevent SQL injections as well. So you would have to add some kind of formatting into your input fields. So somebody doesn't add malicious, tries to maliciously use SQL injections to drop your database or something like that. That's not as common nowadays, because obviously we've encountered it before. We've seen that's an issue, so we've gotten better at protecting against it. But that's just a very, very brief example. So this is a little real world, right? Formatting.
It's done. I did it all.
Chris, I'm gonna go ahead and mute your mic, my friend. I think you're hot micing. No biggie, don't worry about it. But yeah, so we have a list of customer phone numbers in various formats, right? Your task is going to standardize these phone numbers, right? Briefly talking about the data you have here, you have a customer's data structure, and by the curly braces, this should already tell you that you are working with a dictionary because of the key value pairs, right? Because as we know, two things can have the curly braces, which is sets and dictionaries, but the key value pairs is what lets you know that this is a dictionary, right? The key value pairs are as follows, where the key is a string for a name, and then the value is supposed to be the phone number. But as you may already notice, that the phone numbers all have different formatting. The first phone number is separating the parts of the phone number we use in periods, which is not ideal. The next one is using the dash between the last 4 and the 3 in front, but notice that this is this area code is in parentheses. The next one is just spaces, no parentheses. This one has no type of formatting, it's just straight numbers. And then you have this one right here where you have a +1, right? So you have a country code, right? So obviously these all have their individual format, right? So you're gonna write a function that checks if all the numbers. Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. This is a different exercise in its own. I think this is going to be part 2 of this. So first and foremost, create a function that is going to allow you to format all of these in some kind of formats. And once you solve this one, you're gonna move down below to the next one, right? So this is an individual exercise in its own as well. So these are 3 exercises. The first one is just formatting all these. I would pick one. To be honest, I would probably just use the formatting below. You'll knock out 2 birds with 1 stone. Have it in this format if it's a United States number. And then also take into account if you have an area code or not. So if you like, what we can do is I would like for you to treat all of these as United States numbers. Which I believe it should be. No. Yeah, this has a +1. Let's remove for this exercise. I want you to format these without the country code because this is the odd one out, right? Everything else does not have a country code. So just do not have a country code on the last one. And then figure out some way of formatting all these. I think the best way of doing it would be this format right here from the exercise below. All right, so just make sure that they're all separated with dashes and no parentheses. All right, so your format should be as follows: 1, 2, 3 dash 4, 5, 6 dash 7, 8, 9, 0. Right, it should look something like this. Right, this should be your expected output for this exercise. Right, if, and that's a hard if you guys finish this exercise and you guys want to continue doing this on, if you guys finish early, then move on to the next one and try this out. If not, then we can just leave this as homework as additional practice, right? But the first one is going to be to format these. There's one dictionary, so they're all the same, right? Do I have any questions on this assignment? Okay. Well, time is 7:23. I heard your responses from the first exercises, and with that in mind, we'll take more than 20 minutes. We're going to stop this exercise at 8. At 8, I will close down the breakout rooms. At 8:10, we will come back and finish off the last hour with me explaining it. If I explain it within 20 minutes, and that's fine too. We can cut class early. If not, then we'll take the remainder of our time. But you guys have about 37 minutes to tackle this problem as a group. At 8, when the breakout rooms do close, take your 10-minute break, and then we will reconvene at 8:10. Let me go ahead and pause the recording. There we go. So we have to imagine we're working for a phone company that has a list of customer phone numbers in various formats. And before we broke into our individual groups, I did give you guys an expected format, right? And I know the instructions weren't, too clear. But we have a combination in multiple different values, ranging from numbers with parentheses, no spaces at all, with one even having an area code or the country code, as well as some having like periods, right? So we have to format this. And I realized that the last exercise I didn't do a function. So this time I'm going to create a function. We're going to call this format or phone book scrubber. Yes, that's pretty good. Right. And then what this should take in is a dictionary, right? Which is going to be customers. So we'll say phone number dict. And this should be of type dictionary. And this should output a dictionary. I don't know if it's going to give me an issue. I think so. We'll just remove this. But we should be able to take in a argument here, which is going to be a dictionary, right? It's going to be called phone number dict of type dict. This is not mandatory. I do this just for my own sanity, so I know what the type of my arguments are, but it's not needed. And all right, so once we get our dictionary, let me also just kind of run this function at the very bottom so I can just make sure it's doing what it should be doing. I'm gonna call the phone book scrubber, and I'm going to pass in customers. I'm I'm going to print out the results of print. Wherever it comes back from here. And I'm doing something wrong. Phone, book, scrubber. Oh, I know what I'm doing wrong. There we go. Okay, yeah. Well, we'll just return phone, book, scrubber. There we go. So now it's connected. It's working. It is customers. It's printing out something weird, but that's okay. I know what this is. We'll talk about this later. Oh, my bad. This should be phone number. Dick. That's why it's printing out that weird return. Okay. And now if I send this, there we go. Okay, so it's working now. I connected it. We are returning whatever dictionary we get, which won't be the correct one, but we'll get to it in a bit. So here is my function called phone book scrubber. It takes in a dictionary that we're going to call phone number dict. And the end of it, for now, we're just returning that phone number dict so we can make sure it's working, and then we print it out. Well, let's actually get into this, right? So we have a dictionary here, and what we really care about for now is honestly just the numbers, right? So we want just the numbers, which are the values for each one of these keys. So at first glance, you might think, I only want to iterate through the values. But more times than not, whenever you are interacting with a dictionary and messing around with the values, you probably want the key so you can reassign it or in some shape, way, or form, like manipulate it or maybe even access it or whatever. So usually when you are manipulating a dictionary, you don't want to just iterate just through keys or just dictionaries. You might want to iterate through both of them, right? And I'm using the keyword iterate because I will have to iterate through this value, right? This variable customers. This is, in essence, it is a data structure. It's an unordered data structure, but it is a data structure with multiple different key value pairs, right? And if I want to grab each phone number and format each phone number, then I need to be able to iterate through each phone number, right? And that's, once again, I've been reiterating this over and over again. That should be your keyword of how to engage this problem. You know that you have to have some kind of iteration, right? Iteration is just a fancy word of saying I need to loop through all this, right? So I need to create some kind of loop, whether it's a for loop, whether it's a while loop, a for in or for range. It's going to be dictated by the type of data structure you're working with. For this situation, it's going to be a for in. So I'm going to say for. As I mentioned earlier, I probably want to access both key and value pairs from here. So I'm going to use a for loop where I iterate through the items, right? So I'm going to say for name, comma, number in phone number dict dot items, right? That way I can access both the key and values from this dictionary. And just to make sure this is doing exactly what I expect it to be doing, I want to go ahead and print out both name and number, right? And I do this very often, especially when I'm coding along, just so I can visualize what my code is doing. You do not want to write 10, 20 lines of code before you run it for the first time, and then you get an error and you don't know where the error is at. All right, so let's go ahead and put play here. And I see here I am successfully printing out the key value pairs as expected. And at the very end, I am printing out whatever's returning from my function. So we're working with this. I see Andy Scott, we were overthinking it. Yeah, you start to realize like, oh, then we were complicated, and it tends to happen. That's okay. All right. So we are successfully iterating through our data structure with key value pairs. Now, for now, I don't really care for the key. Let's break up what I have to do. Well, first and foremost, I'm going to write some pseudocode here. I needed to iterate through my data structure to access the value, right? Now, once I have the values, the next step will be to I would say format the value to only have digits, right? And this is, I use a very broad way of explaining this because there's different ways of doing this, but in short, after I grab the value, I need to find a way to reformat that value to match the format that I want. Now, there's different ways of doing it. I've seen it, you guys do multiple ways. I think the easiest way of doing this is to iterate through every single character in the value, right? What type of data type is my values?
They're strings.
These are strings, right? And as we've covered through class, strings are sequences of characters, right? Sequences is the keyword there. They are a sequence of characters. What are other sequences that we've worked with? Lists, right? Dictionaries. Sequences are things that we can iterate through over and over again. We know we can iterate through the strings. So because I'm formatting this string, I want to be able to iterate through it. And as I iterate through it, I want to check, hey, is this character a digit or not? Right? Because that's honestly all I care about. I have to display a formatted phone number. I don't care whether it's parentheses. I don't care if there's dashes, plus signs, or a picture of something, right? I do not care. I only want digits. I want to remove everything else. So what I'm going to say is once I have the key value pairs, I'm going to iterate specifically through the value that I am on. So I'm going to say for char, for character, right? For char and number, print char, right? Once again, I'm showing you that I run my print statements very often. Every time I open up a new for loop, if I start nesting stuff, I have to see what I'm doing so I know, and at this point in my code, is it giving me what I'm looking for, right? And it's doing exactly what I thought it would do, right? It's not pretty, but I'm able to iterate through each number. And let's format this in a way that makes it easy for us to see. We can print out, every time we print out char, I'm going to print out the name that this character belongs to. And once again, it won't be pretty, but right here, we're still working on John Doe. We're printing out every single character and John Doe's number. Once we're done, we move on to the next number, which is Jane Smith, and so on and so forth. So I am successfully iterating through the people's numbers. And as I iterate through the number, I want to check if char is a number or not, right? So how do I check if it's a number? Well, there's a method that we have. It's a fairly common method. So I recommend you kind of put this on your notes or put it, in your tool belt. Checking if something is a digit or if it's alphanumeric, right? Let me see. I think it's alpha. I think it's alpha. Check if something is alphanumeric. If you want to check if something is just a digit, you can check with the dot is digit. So we can say if char dot is digits. Print. I want to print char and I want to print out true. So this should only, if this works correctly, when it runs this, I haven't run Python is digit in a while, so I don't know if it's gonna work. But this should check. It should return a boolean true or false. If char dot is digit, if it's true, it's going to print out the character followed by the true boolean. And if it's not true, it won't even print out. So I should only see straight numbers here. Let's run this. And yeah, I was correct. We see here the number 1 true, 2 true, 3 true, and it worked. Once again, it's not pretty, right? We're just making sure that our code is doing what we want it to do. And up to this part of my code, it is checking if something is a digit or not. Now, if it is a digit, what I'm going to want to do is save it somewhere, right? So I probably want to create a variable that is empty, and I'm using that to format my brand new updated number with no extra characters, no letters, nothing, right? So where do I establish this variable. Where do I create this variable that is going to allow me to keep track of the number I'm working on? Well, that's when you start to look at the flow of your code. Do I want to put that character in this for loop or in this for loop? And if I do put it in the for loop that's nested, do I put it in the, where do I put it up here? Do I put it within this if statement or do I put it before? Well, let's think about it. When should I establish this variable? And when I'm done with a phone number, when should it reset? Well, ideally, this variable should reset to an empty string once I'm done with one number and I'm moving on to another. So with that logic in mind, I should not establish this variable within the nested for loop because this for loop is iterating through every individual character in my number. So I should not declare this empty variable here. It should be declared beforehand. All right, so I'm going to say formatted number is equal to an empty string, right? That way, once this for loop iterates to the next number, it once again reestablishes an empty string. And then I start formatting. Once it's done with this string, it goes back around. It goes to number 3, and then it reestablishes an empty string, right? So where you place this variable is actually very important, right? Because if you put this variable in here, you're going to get some very weird formatting. The formatting is going to be a string with one character, right? And I can show you how it works in a little bit if you guys are curious about it. But for now, let's go ahead and move forward. So here is my empty string. I then iterate through the characters of the number that I'm on. I check if the character is a digit. And if it is, I'm going to append it. Actually, I don't think you append on string. I think you have to do plus equals formatted number. Or another way of typing this out, I can say formatted number is equal to what formatted number currently is plus char. Right. So whatever route you try to take about reassigning this variable is going to be up to you. But both this method and the plus equals are the same. Right. They're concatenating two strings. Right. Is everyone still with me? Okay. Okay. So if the number is a digit, I'm going to add it to this formatted number. And if it's not a digit, all I need to do is just continue because I don't care for it. I don't care if it's parentheses. I don't care if it's space, whatever. Now, once I am done iterating through every character in this number, I need to update the value into my dictionary. And I'm gonna try to do it in here. I might get an error. I don't think I will. Maybe. If I do, I'll fix it. Let's go ahead and try to do, I'm gonna say phone number dict. I'm going to call the key I'm currently on, and I'm going to give it a new value, which is going to be formatted number. I think this should work. We'll double check. But anyways, it's going to reset the value of the current person we are on to the new formatted number. And then it's going to go to the next person. It's going to do that over and over again. At the end of it, we should return phone number dict. Let's see how this is working. See if we are getting what I think we're getting. And yeah, we are getting exactly what we expected, right? Here we have every single phone number pretty much with no special characters. But it's not complete, right? It's definitely not complete. We got two things we gotta fix. One, the fact that we don't have the dashes in their respective location, and two, the last number had a country code, so we have additional numbers that we don't want, right? Now, when we fix this, it's going to be up to you, but I think makes more sense that before we move on to the next number, or before we even assign it in here, we probably want to fix this, right? So before we add it into this key value pair in our dictionary, we're going to want to make sure we do some formatting to this string. Well, let's take care of this one case right here, where what happens if we have a country code. I think the easiest way of doing this is checking the length of our number. And if it's greater than, let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If it's greater than 10 characters, I don't want any character past the 10th character. Does that make sense? For example, this Jill Black value, it has 11 characters, right? Because the first character is the country code, and the other 10 characters are the phone numbers. So I need to grab everything from the back forward up to the 10th character, right? So how do we do that? Well, before we add this bad boy to the dictionary, I'm going to say if formatted number, and I want to check the length. If the length of formatted number is greater than 10, right? So I don't want to do any string slicing if it's not greater than 10. But if it is greater than 10, then I need to take into account that we have some additional numbers that should not be here. So if it is greater than 10, I'm going to say formatted number is going to equal to what formatted number it used to be, but I want to slice it. So I need to specify from where do I want to grab it from. I want to grab it from, how can we do this? I don't do this very often. Let's go with -10 and to the right. Right, because -1 will give me 0, -2 will give me 9, -3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, I think -10, right? We're counting from backwards index, right? If you guys recall, how do we access the indexes in iterables like a string or a list? We have regular 0 index and to the right, or we can access items from the back by using the negative. Right? Now, with that in mind, the start point will be from the back. And then I want to, I guess, go backwards. Let's see how this works. Oh, that is not what I wanted. Let's remove this backwards one. There we go. Okay. From the back, no skipping. And yeah, it gave me exactly what I was looking for. Let's run it again just to make sure. Is it taking forever? What's going on? I think code spaces is being weird. Hold on, reconnecting to code spaces. Can you guys hear me? I don't know if it's code spaces or if it's my internet.
No, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, code spaces is being weird. Let's go ahead and refresh this. Let's see, set no remote connection. Okay. Yeah, so as you guys see, you can see it, right? I'm trying to do some slicing here. I'm trying to grab only part of the string that matters to me, right? I don't want the first characters if it's greater than 10, because what that tells me is probably some kind of area code or some country code, right? The country code, I'm not quite sure. I'm not a country code expert, but I think there is multiple digits for some. I think for like America, we have +1. When I was stationed in Italy, the country code was +39. So we have different country codes for different places, some more numbers than others. So if code spaces will stop playing around, that'd be pretty cool. Okay. Well, this is taking way too long. So the point is, right? I wanted to grab the last 10 characters. And then once I grab the last 10 characters of that number, at that point, it's just some string interpolation, right? Some string interpolation where you grab the first 3 characters of string using indexes, right? From like the start of the index up to like index 3, right? To grab the first 3 characters. And then you can join that with like another string slicing syntax. And you do that until you format your string with the dashes. Right. The rest of this was pretty simple. Does anybody have any questions? I know CodeSpace is acting up. So it is what it is. Does anybody have any questions about the approach that I took on this exercise? You know, maybe why I didn't do some type of approach that you guys probably did or seen out there during your search? Nothing? Okay. Well, I saw some answers or some solutions when I was jumping from the rooms. And I think the biggest thing that I saw from all the rooms is generally just the overthinking aspect, right? I feel like we get a little overwhelmed. Like I don't even know where to start. Like I think one group had like 3 lines of code after like 40 minutes, and you just couldn't make up your mind about how you want to engage it. The easy way, honestly, is just breaking it apart into smaller pieces, right? Into smaller sections, writing out like what's the first thing that we want to do. Maybe iterate through this data structure. Okay, now we're iterating through this data structure. What's next? Well, we want to do this if else statement or check this or check that, right? And it's just breaking it down into smaller digestible problems. I'm sorry for code spaces, guys. It's being weird. It's taking forever. I'm gonna stop the actual lecture for this part. I'm gonna move on to the last part that I have for you guys tonight, and that's going to be what to do now. Like, Roger, hey, we're done with all the lessons. I've done all the lesson exercises. We're doing the mini projects, but there's no other exercises after lesson 6. What do I do? Right? I still haven't completed my quarter by challenges, but I still don't feel confident enough. Well, what I want you guys to do is you don't have to do it right now. It's just like on your own time. I want you to visit leetcode.com, right? You're going to sign in. This is my icon for GitHub. You're going to sign in. You can use GitHub or you can use whatever account, your Gmail. You might be brought to this page. If you are here, what you're going to do is you're going to click on problems, right? It is going to take you to the problem section of LeetCode. This is what really matters, right? It's going to bring you here. Now you might feel a little overwhelmed by everything that you see here. Like, where do I begin? What problems do I even get? And I'm sure for those of you who have been going through HackerRank or Code Wars, you don't even know what problems to do. You're like, you mentioned these platforms, Roger, but I am so confused. Like, what problems are even the appropriate level for me to do? Well, there's multiple of them. What I recommend is a study plan, right? So what you're going to do is at this part, you're going to go to study plan on the left side, and it's going to bring you to some already pre-formatted study plans that LeetCode provides, right? And the one specifically that I want you guys to do is going to be LeetCode 75. For those of you who have been around LeetCode, you probably heard that term already. LeetCode 75 or the blind 75 is the terminology that you might have heard. Now, what that is essentially someone who grinds LeetCode, because there are, people like that love doing coding challenges. I'm talking like if you go on YouTube, you can find people who like have like videos where like, what happened after I did 1,500 hours of LeetCode? Yeah, not me. No thanks. But somebody that enjoys this was able to do research. They researched different companies, right? They took information from forums, and they were able to find out what are the top 75 coding exercises that people see within the industry. And with that knowledge, what they did was they created a roadmap, right? So I want you guys to go to LeetCode 75. the LeetCode 75 are the top 75 challenges that you're going to encounter. Now, there are some specific problems that I want you to do. As you see, I've already done some of these. I took it from the top. Right, so all these are the ones that I've done. After a while, I got bored and I stopped doing them. But the ones that I want you guys to do specifically, and then later on you can come back and review the video if you don't know which ones I mentioned, are going to be the ones categorized with easy, right? Now you might think to yourself, well, Roger, what's the big difference between easy and medium? LeetCode does not do a very good job at categorizing their difficulty, right? Even some easy problems might seem very difficult, right? So for some reason, the difficulty jump from easy to medium is actually a very big gap. So if you feel like you struggle with today's exercises, don't even bother even looking at the medium ones. Stick to the easy ones. If you felt like you had a generally easy time, I would still advise you to review the easy ones, just knock them out of the way, and then maybe start looking at the medium ones. Now, I want to talk about the sections that you will not touch because they are completely out of scope and there's nothing that we have covered. And that's going to be anything past hash map /set. Everything past this is stuff that you shouldn't even be thinking about, right? You'll see stack. Some of these terms are going to mean nothing to you. Stack, queue, linked list, binary trees, graphs, right? Heap, priority queues, binary search, backtracking. All this is obviously stuff that I haven't even mentioned in our class. So anything past hash map /set, don't even think about it. Just ignore this. This is a no-go zone. From hash map it up, there's a couple of them that are going to be relevant. First and foremost, on the first section, array /string, do all the easy ones, right? You're going to tackle all the easy ones. These should be right around y'all's alleys. And just by looking at the name, you can kind of already I infer what it's asking from you. Merge strings alternatively, greatest common divisor of strings, right? So these are exercises that you can review. It kind of just train your critical thinking and problem solving skills. For sure, at least if you had to do anything, these 5 right here. The next ones are going to be a specific data algorithm, right? That's going to be the 2 pointers for these two and sliding window, this one only. Nothing else. Now, these are optional. These are stretch goals right here. The 2 pointers sliding window, because these are actual algorithms that you learn. It's like a trick, right? Of how to solve a question. You can Google or YouTube like how to do 2 pointers, how to use a 2 pointers algorithm. This is a trick with code that reaches an outcome. So if you want an extra challenge, then you can do 2 pointers and sliding window. Besides that, I really just want you to focus on these 5 here. These are pretty good starting points. Prefix sum is another one. These are easy points. Finding the highest altitude. Actually, let me not going there to show you the solution. And then the last 2 that you might want to try out is hash map, the 2 easy ones. Hash map is just another fancy word of using a dictionary, right? The fancy term for using a dictionary to map out stuff, kind of like a vowel counter or keeping track of how many words are in a string. You use a dictionary to map it out, right? That's just another fancy word for that. So if you want to learn about hash maps, you can try it out. These use dictionaries. Oh yeah, it's going to show you my answers. Yeah, let's not go there. Okay. But for the most part, the ones that you should definitely check out are these 5 right here. That's if you want an additional challenge, if you're struggling with the coder bites, or you're done with the coder bites and you're waiting for your live technical assessment, try these out for some additional challenges. Sound good? Do I have any questions? Okay. If I have no further questions, that's going to conclude today's class. Tomorrow we're going to do the next mini project. The next 2 mini projects, although they encompass everything that we have learned, it's going to be more about your creativity, right? Of how you can leverage your code to solve them. These problems that we did today were actually ignore everything I just said. They're all helpful. It's just the way that you solve them, you take a different approach. But if you have nothing else for me, that concludes today's class. Make sure you guys are completing your application if you're trying to attend the Avengers cohort. Once again, deadline is this Sunday. You want to be done. If you're trying to figure out where you should be at, you should be done with your part 2 application hopefully sometime the middle of this week. That's, anything past that, you're starting to push the limits of the timeline, because then you still have to schedule your live technical assessment with Guillermo. And there's like 10 or 15 of you trying to schedule it on Saturday. There's only so much time that he can do, right? So make sure if you're not working on the quarter byte challenges already, you're wrong. Straight up, right? If you looked at the quarter byte challenges, they're actually fairly easy. It's, I believe it's like array, string, and like math. I think that's like the name of like the challenge. You just testing out your skills in those. I'm pretty sure I have harder exercises in the lesson exercises than some of the quarter byte challenges. So if you're not doing the quarter byte challenges already, or at least even read them, you're wrong. So make sure you at least check them out. If you haven't, at least a day. Don't be afraid of them. When I was coming through, I spent 2 weeks doing my quarter byte challenges on one exercise. The application process used to be 12 questions, not 3, right? We shortened it, and now we have stuff like guided application and intro to coding. But when I was coming through, there were 12 exercises, and every single one just got significantly harder. It took me around 2 months to finish just the challenges. So you can come and go within your quarter byte, as long as you're in there, like you can come and go until you submit it. So like open it up, try and work it. Don't be copying and pasting code, obviously, right? But let's say you're so stuck on an exercise, then step away from that exercise and then learn some new data structures or practice on dictionaries. Like if you know that you're struggling with something, then you know what you need to achieve a problem. Just go ahead and find the solution somewhere else, and then come back and re-engage the problem. That's totally okay. The point is that you understand what you did, and you can redo it again in a different type of problem. All right, Scott, appreciate you for being here. But yeah, so definitely check up on your quarter byte. Even if you get stuck, that's part of the process. I would get stuck and I will come back. And like I said, I took 2 weeks on just one problem, and that's okay. Make sure there's at least one problem that you really, really understand, because that's probably going to be the problem that you're going to try to explain on your video. If you have any questions about the process, hit me up and we can talk about it, and I'll guide you to the right direction. But if not, that's everything from me. I hope to see you guys on Wednesday. Thank you, guys.